I was like this little closeted gay boy, person of color in like this town in Oregon, and there was no way that I was gonna fit in with any of those people. So the group that I found was like the drama club, and, and I was like, these are my band of freaks.
Hi, I'm Gracie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. Today, I'm chatting with Nico Santos. The Filipino actor and comedian talks about moving to a small town in Oregon from the Philippines as a sophomore in high school, being a gay Asian stand-up amongst mostly white straight men in San Francisco, and how his health almost lost him his series regular role on NBC's Superstore. This and so much more in this episode we titled Not Doing Enough. Hello, Nico, and welcome to Not Blank Enough.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Where are you from? And tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
I am originally from the Philippines. I moved to Oregon when I was a teenager, around 15 or 16.
Oh.
And yeah, it was, I moved from Manila to Gresham, Oregon, which is this like, it's not a small town, but it's just outside of Portland. You know, it's very blue collar. I moved there, and I moved to Oregon with about just a week before sophomore year of high school started.
Wow.
So that was a real sort of shock to the system. Because I had gone to like private Catholic school in the Philippines all my life, and I was sort of just like thrust upon the American public school system.
Oh wow.
So that was really sort of like, I remember being like so excited that I had a locker though, because that was like very American. Because in the Philippines, like you just stayed in one room the entire day.
Oh wow.
And your teachers would come to you. I knew from watching American television and movies that like everybody went to their classes, and went to their lockers in between.
Yeah.
After that bell would ring, grew up watching Beverly Hills 90210 and all that. And I really did think that my high school was going to be like, totally like Beverly Hills. I was like, where's Brendan and Brenda?
Of course.
And it was just this like regular, high school in Gresham, Oregon.
Yeah.
And, but I remember sort of like, oh my God, a locker with I can like put in my combination and all that.
That's so funny and makes so much sense. Of course, the American culture thrust upon the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was school like once you got there being, a sophomore? Did you speak English?
Yeah. I spoke English. I grew up bilingual.
You did, okay.
And everything in the school system in the Philippines, at least in my school, was taught in English, with the exception of Filipino and Philippine history. And it was a Catholic school, so all the religious classes were also taught in Filipino. But everything else, math, science, English, like anything else was taught in English. So I actually had a pretty good command of the English language. I still did have an accent when I moved to the United States, but I remember very clearly when I moved, I was like, I need to lose the accent quickly. So I worked really hard on speaking like an American and like trying to make sure, hi guys, I'm an American.
Right. And then how did that go for you?
I mean, listen, like I moved to the United States. I didn't know really like how to fit in, and I was such a big dork. It's so crazy because like in the Philippines when I was growing up, I collected a lot of comic books and I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I was sort of like, I love like Star Wars, Star Trek, that kind of stuff. I didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't like very popular in the Philippines at all. And I remember when I moved to the States, I'm like, this is my chance. I am going to reinvent myself and I am going to be a different person. And it was all too overwhelming when I moved. And, you're still this like, I wasn't out at the time, but like, I was like this little closeted gay boy, person of color in like this town in Oregon. And there was no way that I was going to fit in with any of those people. So the group that I found was like the drama club.
Of course.
and I was like, these are my band of freaks. And I really, because there was no sort of like arts education in the Philippines, I really sort of like
gravitated
clung
toward?
to
Yeah.
drama club and choir. I was very active in those two things in high school. So that was how I sort of like assimilated. It was like I was in the school plays and musicals and choir competitions and all that.
So that's good. At least you found your little tribe that you can feel welcome in, at least, and not feel so much of an outsider.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even though there weren't hardly any other Asians or any people of color, there were very few people of color in the school and in the town. At least I definitely felt like, okay, so I have a group of friends here, and yeah, it was great.
And in that time, was there a blank that you can remember feeling that you were not enough of?
Feeling not blank enough is a constant theme in my life.
In all our lives.
Seriously. At that time, I would honestly say I was like, I'm not American enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even though grow up in the Philippines, I had also been to the United States a few times before we had decided to move here as a tourist. So I was very exposed and familiar with American culture. You know, I came here as a tourist before, so living here was a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
So being in the trenches of high school and this is my new home now, how was I going to fit in the bigger picture kind of sense? You know, I'm not here for 2 months going to Disneyland and going to the Grand Canyon. I'm here to spend the rest of my life.
Yeah. And, do you have siblings?
I do have siblings. I have an older full sibling.
Okay.
And I have 2 half sisters on my dad's side and a half brother on my mom's side. And when we moved to the United States, it was me and my older brother leaving my mom and my younger half brother.
Oh, okay.
And we went to go live with my dad, my stepmom, my 2 younger half sisters. I was probably like middle class in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. I certainly was like, I mean, it was a privileged life in the Philippines. You know, we had help and we're accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And when I moved to America, it was like, you know, my dad was like blue collar, like struggling. So I sort of left this comfortable. We weren't like extremely wealthy, but you know, we were like in a nice home. You know, I grew up with like a nanny and a driver.
Oh, wow.
Just because that's what the environment. I mean, like, I wasn't by any means like a Rockefeller or anything like that,
right.
But like, you know,
that was the environment over there.
That was the environment. Like you could get household help very, you know, cheaply and all that. And when I moved to the United States, it was my dad, my stepmom, my sisters, me, my older brother, my step grandmother, and my step aunt. So there were 8 of us living in like, I want to say like a 14 or 1,300 square foot, like 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
With 2 bathrooms. I mean, it was tiny, and to be shared with 8 people,
that's a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
This is our sort of like, you know, my dad moved to America in pursuit of the American dream, and I guess we were jumping on that bandwagon, and this is our life now. We had to get used to it.
Yeah. And then did you like at least band with your brother in this time because you both moved here, or was it like he was going through his own thing too?
He was going through his own thing. I remember because like in the Philippines, my brother was a lot more popular, and he was someone who had friends, and I was the annoying younger brother who would like tag along and be like, "Oh, you guys are playing Dungeons and Dragons? Like, I'm a magic user. Can I come and play?" I do remember when I moved here, you know, having that conscious thought of like, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to try to fit in and get a group of friends. And by the time I had sort of become really active in choir and drama, it was very clear, like he was having a harder time adjusting to sort of this new American life. And I was kind of like, you know, I wasn't popular in high school, but like I've just found my group and became really involved in that. And for the first time sort of like felt, I belong somewhere. So.
That's really nice that you had that, you know, because so many kids don't, and especially coming to a strange country and trying to fit in. Yeah. That you found that so quickly, at least.
I wouldn't say that my high school experience was amazing, but like definitely having the shelter of those activities like provided solace and I just hear horror stories from other people who went through such shitty things in high school. And I'm like, it wasn't that. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that.
Right. Somewhere in the middle. So you fell into the acting because that was kind of like the people you felt comfortable around. Did you realize then that you wanted to act as a career, or was it just something you were doing for fun?
I definitely knew that it was something I wanted to do. I thought when I was doing theater in high school and in college that the only way to be on stage was to do theater and do like classical, type whatever. And then when I went to college and majored in theater in college, I started as an actor. I was just not fitting in with the program. It's very classically based. I had an acting teacher who was very discouraging, who just sort of like never didn't think that I was meant for this business or I was going to make it in this business. And the program really, they encouraged me to focus on costume design. So I stopped acting and I switched my major from performance to costume design. And then when I did that, they were like, oh my God, you're so good at this. See, I'm so glad you found your niche. Like, being an actor is hard. You're just not meant for this.
Oh my God.
And I'm so glad. We're just really glad the department, they were like, we're really glad that you found this thing because you're never going to make it as an actor.
Well, that's pretty terrible. And I mean, I'm glad you were great at costume design, but for them to be so dismissive of your talent and like, I get it back whenever this was, because it's so recent that people of color get to be leads and stuff. But
well, that's the thing, that program, again, there was a lot of focus on like classical theater, like Shakespeare and all that stuff, which I love, but I wasn't like, I don't want to be, Titus Andronicus. Like I really, like I love watching that, but I have no dream of being that.
Totally.
Because it was a different time. Like they weren't going to cast me or any people of color in the leads. Like the concept of like colorblind casting was like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
Like everybody's white.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Duh. So I left that program and I was actually working as a wardrobe assistant or a dresser for this theater company in the same town at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And one of the actors that I was in charge of dressing was like, you're funny, you should try stand-up. Like, I've never thought of that. And it wasn't until he had mentioned it that I was like, oh, that's something people do. And I really thought naively that the only way to be on stage was through theater. And it was so weird because like I was a fan of stand-up comedy, and it wasn't until this person had mentioned it I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to give up this dream of being on stage or being a performer just because I'm not like a stage actor.
Yeah.
Like I was like, how did I not see that? I was like, all right, I'm quitting. I quit my job, and like the following year, I moved to San Francisco. I was like,
oh my God,
I'm leaving this one horse town.
Amazing. So when you were in college and they're discouraging you from acting because of this, like, who should be a stage actor type deal. Yeah. And you got into costume designing. What was your feeling then? Like, what was your blank then? Were you just feeling like not, I don't know, theater enough or something?
Yeah. A recurring theme in what I always struggle was it's sort of like, I guess imposter syndrome would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
which sure. Everybody, every artist, actor, performer, I mean, not even performers, like everybody just goes through some sort of like imposter syndrome. Yeah. It's a thing that I struggle with a lot to this day. It is a constant like thing that I have to like tell myself that like that I am good enough, that I'm talented enough, that because there's obviously things in my life that I have achieved. Like there are days when I'm having good days, and I look at my career and where I am now. I'm like, I worked so hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I did that. And when I'm in a healthy mental space, I can look at it sort of objectively and be like, give yourself a pat on the back, man. Like you have struggled and worked so hard, like these past like 15, 16, 17, I mean, close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
Just hustling. And then when it's the bad days, even though, you know, so many people dream to work at this level, to achieve what I've had. And the bad days are just like, wow, you're a piece of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you've fooled the world into thinking that that you are talented enough or good enough or funny enough to have been in this position. And, the industry's going to wake up one day and realize that, wow, that was a mistake. Why the fuck did we put this guy in that show?
Oh my God. I know we all have it. It's so crazy, but it's so true and so common among everyone. I interviewed a NASA engineer who feels that way. Like, when he's in a room with people, he just feels like shouldn't be there. He's not smart enough to be there or not talented enough to be there. So
yeah, it is. It's a constant struggle. I wish it were the case. I wish I was just like as confident as they can be. And then you find out and talk to your other friends who seem like
they're confident and they're not.
They're confident and the most put together people, and you're like, oh, this never ends. Even the people who are more famous, more successful, richer, hotter, whatever. Every person that I've talked to who has more of what I want, I mean, they feel the same way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
if not more.
It's like a never ending. Yeah, I think if not more, especially because I think the more success you have and the more money you have, the more scary it is to think about losing it. And the more you get in your head about, I fooled them. How long can I fool them for? And all that stuff.
I wish I could capture that feeling again of when I was just starting out, when you had nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And now it's like, I just turned 42 2 days ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. 42. I just turned 42. Like I have a house with my partner.
Yeah.
Like I have this career that's, like established, and there's certainly a lot more things I want to do in my career, but like I've certainly achieved a certain level of success that many people just, it's certainly what I was dreaming of when I moved to LA,
Exactly. I get it. I totally get it. It totally makes sense. It's what we all do. So then did you get into stand-up? Did you start doing stand-up at some point?
In San Francisco, yeah. When I moved there, I was like, I'm gonna do stand-up. That's why I moved to this town. And I ended up just working retail for a long time in San Francisco. It took me like about 3.5 years to muster up the courage, because I was like, I'm going to San Francisco, I'm going to do stand-up. 3.5 years go by, and like, that thing that I said I was going to do? Oh, God. I got a call that, hey, your old job is available in Oregon. Would you want to maybe come back to do wardrobe again? Like, I know they're looking for people at the festival. If you need a job and, you're not cutting it in San Francisco, you could always come back to Oregon. And I was like, I can't do that. I am like a single, gay Asian man in my 20s. Like, I'm finally in San Francisco. Like, I can't go back to a small town in Oregon. So my friend Mia at the time, she was friends with a couple of stand-up comedians. And I was like, hey, girl, like, does your friend still do that open mic? She's like, hold up. And she made some calls. And then, like, 20 minutes later, she's like, all right, you're all signed up for the open mic. It's tonight, and we're going.
What? Did you have material?
Yeah, I had been, because it was this dream of mine. I was like, I'm going to do stand-up. So since I left Oregon, I had kept this notebook, and I would just jot down like jokes and stuff. And so I had this like notebook of like jokes that I was like, if I ever do stand-up, this is what I'm going to do.
And how'd it go?
Amazing. I was like, I cannot believe I'd waited this long. It was like a light bulb had gone off. It was truly like it was the missing piece of the puzzle that I didn't know was missing. Like, it felt like this is what I should be doing. Not just stand up per se, but like the feeling of it's comedy. Like, I had never experienced comedy in that manner of like, like saying a line. It was such
instant gratification,
the control, yeah, it was really just like, oh my God, like I can't believe I waited this long to like try this out. And after that open mic, I was hooked, and I started going to open mics every day. And at the time, San Francisco had a really amazing stand-up comedy scene, and I could get like 2, 3 sets, 4 sets sometimes a night.
Wow.
In SF. So I just dove in and started doing stand-up in SF, and I did it in SF for a good like 7, 8 years before I moved to LA.
Oh, wow. So you were just focusing mostly on being a stand-up comedian at that time?
Yeah, I moved to LA with no intent of being a television actor. I was
wow.
I'm gonna be a comedian. I'm gonna move to LA. I'm gonna like, the dream was be a huge stand-up comedian, and Dave Chappelle and Wanda Sykes and like all those people, Margaret Cho, play stadiums. And when I moved to LA, I was doing a lot of stuff with stand-up, and then my manager was like, you should audition for stuff. Everybody does that here in LA. And then I started booking co-stars, 2-line roles here and there, and a 2-line co-star at a multicam show, it pays more than a weekend at a club. So I was like, oh well, then if I can book like co-stars, like here and there, and then do stand-up,
why not?
Great, this is good. This is good money. And then I booked Superstore, and then I just started acting more. Yeah, but I never thought I would be creatively fulfilled. Like, this is certainly not what I imagined where I would be, but I don't know. Like, I am very creatively fulfilled. Like, stand-up has taken sort of a step back, and because I found this thing that I never thought would be so creatively fulfilling as well.
So when you were in San Francisco doing like 7, 8 years of stand-up, tell me a little bit more about that. Were there nights where you bombed? And if so, how did you feel? And like, what was that whole experience of being a stand-up like? What was your blank then?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel not funny enough?
Constantly. Yeah. The thing in stand-up is that when you're killing, it is the best feeling in the world. It's like you've done just like all the cocaine in the world, and you're so high, and you're just like invincible. And then when you bomb, you're just like, well, I'm a piece of shit. I should kill myself. And why did I even think that I was good enough to how dare I like have the confidence to get up on stage and
right.
We're just going to make these people laugh. It's definitely this profession of extremes.
I'm always so like in awe of stand-ups, because the closest I've done to that is improv. I was on a house team at Iowa West, and it's the same kind of thing. When you have a great show, you're so high, it's so much fun. It's like the best rush, best feeling. When you have a bad show and it's like crickets in the audience, it's horrible. But at least with improv, you have teammates, so it's kind of like you're in it together. Whereas I'm always like, stand-ups are up there all alone, and it's like crash and burn by yourself.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword about stand-up, right? Is that, for me at least, going to stand-up, I was like, oh, I'm this gay guy, I'm Asian, and like, are people really gonna like connect with what I'm talking about? Because I was always out in my act, and I would always talk about like sex and stuff, and it's certainly a different. People were okay with gay people back then, but like, even now, if I talk about like a rim job, people are like, "Oh my God,"
right?
What are you talking about? Oh my God, you know. So I was really worried about that. But that's the thing about that I love about stand up is that I very distinctly remember like some of the open mics or shows that I've been to where. It's a white male, straight, cis dominated field. So, and I would always do the shows after my shift at work and doing retail. So all these straight boys were like dressed in their New Balances and their, like beefy tee, the Hanes t-shirts and hoodies or whatever. And I would show up in a full suit with my Prada loafers, ready to do the open mic. And so many times comics would be like, who's this guy? So like totally do the flash judgment. And I would just sort of like yeah, okay. You don't have to, don't mind your own business. It's fine. And then I would get up on stage and completely crush it. And then get off stage and be like, hi, that was good. How was that?
I love it.
Oh, you had 10 minutes of silence. You bombed. Okay. Bye, boo. That's when it's great, right? Because it is this thing
all
where
the glory at the same time.
It's all you. It's all you. And nobody can deny that. And that's the thing I love about stand-up is that, your job is to get from A to B. You just have to make the audience laugh. And it doesn't matter how pretty you are, skinny, hot, whatever. If you're killing, nobody can take that away from you. And there was such a power to that, when I was doing well. But then, you have shows when you're bombing and those same people are like, oh, see, this freaking queer can't even, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, God.
Speaking of that too, when did you come out, and was that something you did back when you were home or in San Francisco?
I came out in high school. I had told a few people in high school. After my junior year of high school, I had gone to the summer after my junior year. I went to a 2-week Shakespeare camp at the college and the theater that I used to work at. And it was in that 2-week period that I really was like, I'd always known I was different growing up. Yeah. There was something about that happened in those 2 weeks that I was like, oh no, I think, no, I'd finally heard the word gay and, and I was really just like, oh, I think that's what I am. So I told a few people, in high school, but then after freshman year, I was completely out of the closet.
Oh, nice.
But I still had to tell my mom over the phone because she was still in the Philippines. Right. I told her and she was like, oh, didn't we talk about this last year? I was like, I think I would remember coming out to my own mom, but no, we did not talk about this last year, Mom. I'm gay. She's like, oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, your uncle's being blah, 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 blah.
And that's amazing.
But then, she was really just she was kind of a fag hag growing up. So it was, she had a lot of gay friends and she told me, she's like, I always knew you were gay because when you were in kindergarten, she's like, you would come home and you would have your homework, and in the back of your homework, I guess I would draw like women in gowns and stuff.
Oh wow!
I was I collected a lot of comic books and watched a lot of anime and robot cartoons, and she said I would always draw the women superheroes in different costumes or different dresses.
Oh my God! So you were a costume designer from kindergarten, basically.
Oh, I always loved fashion, as a kid and stuff like that. Watching my mom get dressed and get ready for work because we owned wine shops in the Philippines.
Oh, cool.
And so every now and then she would have to host a party or go to an event for some some liquor thing, and so she would I would always watch her get dressed in party clothes. I'm like, oh, and then I would draw my own gown for her or something.
That's incredible. I love that. Tell me about getting Superstore and what that was like in that process and how that changed everything.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. There was so much going on in my life at the time. I had just the year before I had done the CBS Diversity Showcase, and that ended right as pilot season started. So, and I had booked a few roles, but I didn't book a pilot I thought. And I was really discouraged. The following year was the audition for Superstore. And I was really sort of questioning, not that I was I wasn't giving up per se, but I was is this as far as I'll go? Am I just going to be the guy who is, book a 2-line part here and there and just do stand up? Can I live with that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because, there are some people out there who really want the thing. They want the Oscar. They want the thing. And
then there's people who are just okay being working actors and doing commercials and co-stars.
Right, right. And those avenues were never a possible. I had never really fully thought about or considered oh, what is this really going to look like?
Right.
Now that I'm in the thick of auditioning and sort of really gotten a foot in the industry, like, what is this going to look like? Is my life going to be, yeah, exactly, like just lifelong things of co-stars and doing clubs, or am I going to reach that next level? And honestly, just before Superstore, because I had, I was in a bad space mentally. I just didn't know if I had what it took to sort of really push through. I got Superstore, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that it happened, because it was just like, there's so many things about it that are just sort of like glimpses of the memories, because I don't fully remember, because everything was sort of like crazy. But, I auditioned, I went through the callbacks, I got the part. There was this crazy thing that happened. So after questioning, whether am I really made for this industry? I don't know.
Yeah.
I booked the part. It was a dream. It was I could not believe that it happened. I was just like, after years of working and doubting myself, and blood, sweat, and tears for so long trying to book something like this. I got it. I've never really talked about this that much, but when you book a part for a network or anything like that, a network show, you have to go through a physical, a medical screening.
Oh, okay.
Right? For insurance purposes.
Oh, right.
I'm a diabetic. I'm type 2 diabetic. And at the time that I got Superstore, I didn't have medical insurance. So I wasn't on my meds. I was just being honest with the doctor. And I was like, hey, I have diabetes. It's been a couple of years since I've been on my meds. I don't have insurance. At the time I was literally like, I had just gotten a job at a, like restaurant, and I was not doing well financially, kind of struggling. And so I'm just not on my medication. And the doctor was like, it's fine. You're certainly not the first person with diabetes who, is working. So
yeah,
it's totally fine. She told me it was not going to be a problem. And then I get a call a few days later from my manager.
Oh no.
And was like, he's like, what's going on? I was like, what are you talking about? Is everything okay? He's like, no, dude. Like, we have a problem. I was like, what are you talking about? And I guess this doctor had told the network that I was unfit to work.
What?
I was unfit to work. The news has already been announced, Deadline, Variety, that I was cast in this role.
Right.
And then they're telling me, like, we have a problem. We don't know if you'll be able to be cast. Like, they didn't clear the medical screening. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I completely fell apart. My roommate was like, I had basically had locked myself in my room for like,
oh my God,
2-3 days, like finally worked my ass off to achieve
this
thing that I really, really fucking wanted. And in an instant it was being taken away from me. And, I have to give credit to my agents and my team who really worked. They were like, listen, like, we are not going to let this just slip by. This is too big of an opportunity for you. Clearly we can work this out. So they made some calls, and, they finally agreed that I would get a second medical opinion. And if that other doctor, did more tests, more intensive tests, and cleared me for work and submitted his findings to the network and to the insurance companies, then they would make their decision whether they could hire me or not.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, because the network wasn't sure if I was going to be hired, they had to have another casting.
No. Oh no.
For my role. So all my friends, listen, like all the gay actors who auditioned for my part, because at this time they had already changed the role to fit me. So Mateo was originally written as a straight Latino guy. I got cast. They turned into a gay Filipino guy. This whole medical thing happened. And then all my friends, they weren't even like Filipino. They were just like finding gay guys to fill my shoes. I literally was getting phone call after phone call. It was like, girl, like, I thought you book this part.
Yeah.
I'm literally saying the lines, I was born in the Philippines on these sides. Like, what's going on? Like, what are you not doing this? And I was like, I can't talk about it. But good luck. I hope you get the part. And I just there's nothing more I can say. I'm so, you know, I wasn't invited to. I couldn't do the pilot, the table read. I was actually disinvited from it. I got a phone call saying, "Hey, we know the table reads today, but we were just told because of the whole thing that unfortunately we can't have you there." So I wasn't there for the table read for it, and I had to wait and see if I could work the show. And finally, you know, my test came back. They submitted it to the network. I got cleared and approved to work on that pilot on Saturday, and we had to film the pilot on Monday.
Oh my God.
And
oh my God.
Yeah, there was a really sort of scary, dark time in my life. Like, if I didn't get Superstore, I don't know what it would have done to my mental health. Like, if it was like, you're not doing this, it's, you know, it's done. Like, I really don't know what it.
Especially in that manner. Like, it's one thing to not book it in the first place, but to book it and then be told you possibly can't have it because of this. Yeah. What was your blank then? Like, what was the big thing that you were feeling at that point?
Honestly, on just a very basic level, I'm just like, I'm not healthy enough. I'm not healthy enough to do this career. After years of sort of just partying too much, drinking too much, not taking care of myself.
As we all do in our 20s and, even into our early 30s.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, my diabetes was undiagnosed for a really long time. And I went through a period of my life where I was just not taking care of myself. I was either doing too many drugs or drinking too much or what have you. And I was just, health was not my priority. And in this crazy way, the show really saved my life. Like, it really, after that, I finally, made enough money to get insurance. Because I had to get this another medical opinion, it really forced me to sort of put my health back on track.
Mm-hmm.
It really sort of helped me sort of reassess my priorities and really sort of just look at my career and myself in the face and be like, here's this thing being presented to you, and these doors are about to open to a whole new level of your career, to something that you've really aspired to and really wanted for a long time. If you're going to do this, it's time to sort of take steps to do that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. I'm so glad it worked out in the end.
It's so crazy.
I don't know enough about diabetes, but how can you be diabetic and not be on your meds? Like, how do you?
Well, I have type 2 diabetes. Mm-hmm. So if you're type 1, you obviously need to be on insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And type 2, your blood glucose levels are just out of whack. And the thing about diabetes is that it's a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of health problems because my sugar levels were not, we're off for a really long time, and some major medical issues that I'm just now dealing with. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
I can't take back the past. No regrets, as they say.
Exactly.
But I'm just, it was a really tough lesson that I had to learn. It was just you can't change the past. You just have to sort of do what you do with the present, and how you move forward is how
mm-hmm.
you should judge yourself by. Because
Absolutely.
And it's a hard thing to not do. I am constantly I'm such an anxious person that I will wake up in the middle of the night and remember something from 7 years ago that you stupid idiot, why the fuck did you say that to that person 7 years ago? And you're
oh my God.
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
obviously working with therapy and all that. That therapist is just you need to let that
Let it
go.
go.
Happened years ago, honey. Like, it's just learning to sort of be present and move on and focus on the things that are in front of you, not not necessarily
Behind
what's
you.
ahead of you or
Yeah,
behind you, but
exactly.
because that's really what all you can focus on.
So today in 2021, what's going on with you, Nico? And how are you feeling today? And is there any blank that's still lingering for you, or that feels that you, or one that you've kind of feel like you've came over, or in the sense,
Yeah. Well, today, I think the not blank enough that I'm going through today is, I would say, not doing enough. And what I mean by that is, so many things are happening in the world right now. We're going through this sort of like reckoning with racism and discrimination in our country. There's all this like AAPI violence that's happening. Like trans kids are being attacked by the laws that are being passed. So as I'm Asian, I'm gay, my partner is trans. So like obviously like racism is bad, white supremacy is bad, and that affects all of us. I don't even know how this sounds, or if it sounds whatever. Like, I'm so sorry, but like all of a sudden finding yourself having a platform, being a public figure, also realizing that like, oh, I'm not really good at this sort of like activist sort of type stuff. I certainly, like when I have time or when I'm in a good mindset, I will post something and really sort of like amplify different voices or post something to my own account. But I don't know, like I've really felt it's been bothering me a lot because like, I've gotten like, how come you're not speaking up about this kind of stuff, or you're not posting enough about this kind of stuff? And I'm just like, I don't know what to say most of the time.
Yeah.
So many people are just so much better about posting and crafting their thoughts about this, or how they really feel. Like a lot of times, like I find my words fail me, or I can't be as eloquent or get the point through. Like I get really passionate about it, I get really angry about it, and like, what will end up just happening is I'll just tell people in my comments to go fuck themselves, because I'm just like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like I just
No,
don't
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like,
And it's
like don't
scary, especially today, because, people lose their jobs over things now. People lose their careers over things. And you have to be so careful how you say
yeah
things and what you say. And I totally get that, almost like not activist enough. I don't know if that's proper
yeah
English, but I know what you mean. I can feel it sometimes too, where I feel like I don't have as big a platform as you, but even having any platform, I feel like any amount of followers on Instagram, it's just that feeling of like, oh, I have to post about this thing. And then what do I post and how do I post? And then am I doing enough? Is donating
yeah
money enough? Should I actually be doing something in person? Is it protest
right.
enough? Like there's a constant like struggle
And
of how much I'm doing.
yeah, am I doing enough? Yeah, as
Mm.
you're just like, the AAPI harassment and violence stuff, like it's been very paralyzing. I've talked about this a little bit on a couple of other interviews. It's been very paralyzing for me. Like I think growing up being gay, like that was the thing that I sort of looked behind my shoulder about, was I was always afraid of being gay bashed. That was a constant like fear of mine. But when I moved here, nobody really gave me shit about being Asian, which I was really thankful for. Seeing all these people being attacked for being Asian, like it's just bringing up a lot of stuff that I'm just like, oh, that was actually the type of stuff that I was afraid of getting for being gay. Now it's happening to people for being Asian. My brain was like, I don't know how to process this. It's too much.
Yeah. And that's fair. I feel like when this stuff happens, we expect people to speak immediately. And some of us need more time to process. Some of us
Yeah.
can't have that in our faces for our own mental health. I mean, I think when the BLM stuff was going on, and George Floyd, and all these videos were popping up. People like, have you seen this video? I'm like, no, I choose not to see those videos because I
Yeah.
emotionally cannot handle those videos. And so, and even now with the AAPI attacks, I haven't watched one because I'm like, it's the same thing. It's bringing up the same stuff of like being
Yeah.
attacked for just being who you are and stuff you have no control over.
Yeah.
And people have to understand that too. Like I don't know. It's twofold. Like I also don't want people of color with a platform to not say anything or acknowledge
Right.
anything, but also like give them the space to do it in the way that they feel comfortable doing it.
Well, there's also this thing where like, listen, last year was just a shit year. I mean, for most people, but personally, like I have lost 4 people last year. So I was dealing with a tremendous amount of loss and mourning. My show ended. So my therapist has been like, you're dealing with a lot of loss like in your life right now. And it's okay. It's okay for you to sort of just like keep space for yourself and make sure that you're okay. You get a good mental headspace about everything. And that's the thing. It's just like, I don't feel like because you have this public platform, I don't feel like I have the space for that. I feel like I have to constantly, and I don't, and I'm just like, well, whatever. People think that I'm, like not saying anything. I can't right now. Like I really can't. I'm just too, there've been days where I just can't even get out of bed. So like I can't post right now. I'm so sorry.
Right.
If I can't get out of bed, I'm not going to post.
Right.
And then there's also times where just like, who even cares what I think? Like, it's like, oh, you have like so X amount of followers on Instagram, whatever, on social media. I'm like, yeah, but I'm just a stupid actor. You know what I mean? Like, why would anybody care what I have to say about this?
Right.
You know?
Right. It's just part of your imposter syndrome.
Right. I'm a clown. I put on other people's clothing. Like I put on fake whatever, like costumes for a living and pretend to be another person for a living. That is what I do for. So why would anybody even care what I think about this? But yeah, that's
care,
imposter
Nico.
syndrome.
We do care. We do care what you have to say. So at the end we name our episode. So what for you feels like the overarching blank for Nico? And that could be something you're still struggling with. That can be something that kind of propelled you to greatness or got you where you are today.
Honestly, I would have to say it's like I'm not doing enough. And I mean that in both positive and negative sense. Obviously there are moments in my life or places in my life where I feel like I could be pushing it a lot further. When I'm feeling a little more down, and even though I look at my career and I'm like, you've done a lot, there's still that thing in your head. It's like, no, you're not. You haven't done shit. You need to get out there and like conquer the world.
Yeah.
But it is a constant thing that I think about, whether I'm in a good mental space or a bad mental space. It's how much I'm doing.
Yeah.
And is it enough? Am I doing enough?
Yeah.
Am I doing enough?
No, I get it.
I'm
constantly feeling like, am I doing enough?
Constantly. Whether I'm in a good or bad place, that's constantly in my head. Yeah. And there's also this guilty feeling. I feel like if I take a moment and like, I just, like for mental reasons, I'm like, I just need to sit still right now and literally do nothing and let my mind, like, and then you feel guilty. But like, what are you doing? Like sitting down, like taking a nap? Are you crazy? Like go write the next great TV show. What are you?
Yeah.
Don't take a 20-minute nap, you idiot. What are you doing? It's like you can't.
I get it. I'm like, I'm doing way too much. I'm trying to do less. I'm trying to actively do less. So
yeah,
because I'm in that stage kind of where I think probably you were right before Superstore, where I'm like, I feel like something's close, but also I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Just like give it all up. But it's like, no, I finally feel like things are percolating. And, I think about kind of what you said. I think about Gracie, who moved to LA at 27, who, fucked around for 3 years, really didn't start pursuing acting until 30. And now I'm your age, I'm 43. I'm a year older than you. And like, the last 13 years has been like devoted to acting and writing all this stuff. And the stuff that's happening for me now and the representation I have now, the 30-year-old would have been like freaking out about and so excited and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I do feel those things, but also I'm like, yeah, but I want that series regular. And yeah, but I want to sell a TV show. Like these little things is not enough until I get this thing. And then I know once I get that thing, that won't be enough. So it's just like an acceptance of you're always going to want to go to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Cause I mean, like, I go through that for, I look at other people, who are a little bit more successful than me, and I look at like, all my contemporaries, I'm like, oh, well, they've done like 2 Marvel movies already. And like, and I'm literally like, I've only done Crazy Rich Asians and I haven't done my second movie yet. Like, God, I'm such a failure. And I'm like, are you? And then I snap out of it. I'm like, are
you crazy?
Idiot?
You were in Crazy Rich Asians.
I was like, you were in one of the biggest movies ever. And here you are, and like did 113 episodes of a show. And literally there are days where you're just like, you are just a piece of doo-doo and you need to like, I'm like,
we're so mean to ourselves. Why are we so mean to ourselves?
It's so crazy because you know what? You would never, like, I would never talk to another person in that manner in any way or form. Like I would never do that to another person. But when it's yourself, you're just so like, fair of just like, yeah, you're garbage. You should like not be doing this.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so we'll call it Not Doing Enough with Nico Santos, which is different than the other Not Doing Enough. and can you just tell our audience where they can find you?
Hi, everyone. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Nico Santos. I don't have a show anymore, so.
Well, it's not like Superstore has like been removed from the planet. You can still watch
true.
You know
Superstore. What? These things last forever. So please, you can stream Superstore on Peacock or Hulu.
There you go.
Got 6 seasons, 130 episodes. It's a great watch. I think Crazy Rich Asians is on HBO or HBO Max, so check that out.
There you go.
And hopefully you'll be able to find me on something else very soon.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Well, thank you, Nico.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Thank you for listening to Not Blank Enough with me, Gracie Mercedes. You can find out more about today's guest in the show notes. Please subscribe to Not Blank Enough wherever you get your podcast, and follow us on Instagram at Not Blank Enough Pod. Also, if you like what you hear, please consider a rate and review. Our show today was executive produced by Gracie Mercedes and Dave Hill, and produced by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.